Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what it do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast, back at you with another one. My boys, Vlad, Barry, and today we got a very special. If you watch the NFL Network, you should be very familiar. It's NFL Network reporter, Bridget Condon. Bridget, thank you for the show today. How are you?
Good. Thank you guys for having me. Finally, we can talk week-long and forever. I feel like this summer has taken so long to get here, but now we have some real things to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. The NFL offseason is definitely a long one, but for good reasons, because these guys are killing themselves on the field for a little while, and then they need that rest. But week one is fun. Anything you're excited for the start of the season?
Yeah, a lot of things I'm excited for. Mainly Thursday night here at our office, right across the street, SoFi Stadium, Bills Rams. Could it be a preview of the Super Bowl? Who knows? But that's just going to be so exciting to see the Rams unveil their banner from Super Bowl last year and see two of the best teams in the NFL go up against each other. I'm really looking forward to that. And then there's some the schedule makers, they know what they're doing. Russell going back to Seattle, Baker Mayfield playing against the Browns. So a lot of drama week one.
Baker Mayfield, he was talking about he didn't say he was gonna mess them up. It's not what the report was, but he said that he didn't really say that stuff right there. So I know right now you're following the Chargers. You're reporting on the Chargers a little bit. You're based out in California, and the Chargers are definitely an intriguing team to me. What's the major news around the Chargers right now? I know Justin Herbert. A lot of shit. He's been on the rise since he came into the league. What do you think are Chargers?
The biggest thing about the NFL is you can look at a team on paper and try to predict how their season is going to go, and none of us will be right. But if you look at the Chargers on paper, they have everything covered. There was issues on the run defense. Last year they went out, they got Khalil Mack, they got J.C. Jackson. I know you guys are familiar. He was with the Patriots. They got Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day, some big boys up front. They filled all of these holes, which I think for a lot of Chargers fan, Brandon Staley, they're really excited about what they have out there. Now it's just, okay, week one, can they go and put it all together? I think Justin Herbert, he had a great year last year. You get Zion Johnson from Boston College, the right guard. There was issues over there on the right side of the line. You get him, Trey Pipkins as the starter at right tackle. And I think there's finally some stability on that offensive line, which is going to open up opportunities for Austin Eckler. Then you talk about the wide receiver duo, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They have all of the pieces there. It just, can they go out on the field and win games at a level that they need to be? Week one's going to be really exciting about. I forgot to mention that too, against the Raiders here at SoFi on Sunday. You remember how last season ended with, they missed the playoffs, field goal, could have taken a knee. But yeah, there's a lot that's on the line for the Chargers this season. And I believe that they have all the pieces to make a deep playoff run.
The Chargers are in a loaded AFC West division. Do you see them being able to get out of that and swim through that Charge division?
Yeah, we were actually just talking about that, me and a couple of the other beat reporters at practice last week, about how strong this AFC West is, right? You have the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes. Whoever comes out of that division, I believe, is going to be successful in the playoffs, because if you're playing these teams twice during the regular season, if you make it out of there, you would think the teams that you have to face in the playoffs probably it should be easier than what you had to do during the regular season. I think it's all going to come down to who can stay healthy. We see that in the NFL. These teams look so good week one and then have a random spontaneous injury that pops up. One of the things I do like about the Chargers, though, is their depth across all of their positions. I think that can separate them. And again, that defense, that was the biggest issue last season for them. So I think it's going to be really competitive, but I definitely think they have a chance to come out on top for sure.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier is that you covered the Panthers, and we know that they had a QB competition there, and Sam Darnold did not win that competition, and now we have the Browns facing their ex-quarterback. Well, how did he win that job? Like, what did you see that he did that led him to winning that job? And do you think he has what it takes to beat the Browns on Sunday?
Absolutely. I think Baker Mayfield is in this phase of his career where he knows that this is the time, this is his second chance, and he wants to go out and revamp his career. He won that job. Of course, the Panthers traded for Baker Mayfield, wouldn't have made that move, right? You would have stuck it out with Sam Darnold. But for them to trade for Baker and still make him go through that competition, like you mentioned, I was there during training camp, and it was definitely a competition. And in the beginning of camp, you saw Sam Darnold a little bit maybe more advanced than Baker because he knew the playbook. He had opportunity to work with Ben McAdoo during minicamp and OTAs. But once Baker got a feel for his receivers, got some of that timing down, you really saw him quickly go past Sam Darnold and really earn that starting job. I think that he has been, Matt Rule was even saying today, he's been a professional since he got there. He knows what's on the line. A lot of people are wondering about his emotion and will his emotion ruin his career? Maybe that was an issue in Cleveland. He got too emotional and tied to things. I think he's shown a level of maturity in Carolina that maybe he didn't have before. And with the Panthers offense, with guys like Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, who have been in this system for a while, I think they balance him out. So I definitely think it'll be competitive week one. And I do believe that, especially with the Browns, I think Jacoby Brissett, they said, would be their starter. It'll be interesting, but I do believe that there's a chance, especially at home, that Baker and the Panthers take week one.
Baker's such a polarizing figure, right? You know, coming out, I mean, what he did at Oklahoma and coming out number one in the draft and, you know, taking Cleveland to the playoffs, you know, for the first time in a while, and, you know, commercials and all that stuff. And I think he got a bad rep with Odell Beckham, you know, coming in and them not really clicking as much. Do you foresee any problems with him and, you know, meshing with receivers on the Carolina Panthers?
You know, it's hard to say because people that I've talked with inside the Panthers organization say that honestly, they haven't seen that side of him. And I think that we never will get both sides of the story of what actually happened in Cleveland. Because I know one of the things that I brought up or was brought up to me was when everything happened with Odell, why did none of Baker's teammates come and stick up for him? But then I heard through the grapevine, well, there were people that stuck out for him, but maybe it wasn't publicized. So again, I don't exactly know what happened there. All I know is what I can see with him interacting with the Panthers. And look, everything is golden right now. Nobody's lost a game in the NFL. So is it easier to have a positive attitude? I would think so. What's going to happen if they start the season 0-3, if things get frustrating? I don't know. I can't predict it, but based on everything that I've seen and heard from the Panthers organization, is he is a guy that's really fitting in. And sometimes players like that competitive edge, right? Shaq Thompson was talking about that Cam Newton was kind of like that. He kind of had that fire. He was talking trash to players on the field. And it's that drive that helps people win games, right? So I think there's a little balance there. Does it get a little too sloppy and too much versus having that competitive drive and using it to your advantage? But as of right now, I think that they're comfortable with who he is as a person. And Matt Rule even said this morning, I want Baker to just go out and be Baker. So we'll see how it happens. Again, if, the season, if they tank in the beginning of the season, how does he handle it? We'll have to see.
Absolutely. I hope Baker does well because I think the league is better with Baker when he's doing well. You also mentioned that you did some Packers camps, right? And I wanted to know about, the Packers receiving situation and what is Aaron Rodgers going to do? Because I heard it's just reported that Alan Lazard might not be playing, this first week, and he's pretty much like the top receiver there. How do you foresee that going for the season?
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time, but we forget that the Packers have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, two of the best running backs in the league. And A.J. Dillon will be involved in the passing game. I think that's going to make a difference. I also believe that if we were talking about a team that didn't have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, I would be a little bit more worried. But the things that he's been able to do with rookie receivers and receivers in general, I think the thing about Aaron Rodgers as a receiver, I would love to be his teammate because really you need to just run your route and he's going to get you the ball. So for especially Romeo Doubs, who looked amazing during training camp, the rookie, if once these rookies get up to speed a little bit, or these receivers, get used to what it's like playing in the NFL, I'm not concerned that they won't be able to produce on offense, maybe the way that other people are talking about that, of course.
Absolutely. That makes me feel good because I picked Aaron Rodgers in fantasy yesterday. So I need him to do his thing here. We spoke about, we are in the East Coast, and you do cover an AFC team, not going too much into the Patriots and what's going on over there. But what is the sense that, from covering the other teams that you get about the Patriots and how they might do this year?
The thing about the Patriots is you can never count them out. I grew up outside of Boston, so I've been following the Patriots for my entire life. And once you start to doubt Bill Belichick is when everything else turns wrong. There are obviously questions about the Patriots, especially with Josh McDaniels going to the Raiders, who's calling their plays on offense. We saw a little bit, between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge during the preseason, two guys who really had never called offensive plays before. There's a little bit of uncertainty there in getting their offense down. I think it's going to take a couple weeks for them to work that out, whether Bill Belichick is going to be the primary offensive play caller. I know he's been a little, I don't know what the word to describe him is, but, Bill Belichick, how he is, coach speak during his interviews when people have asked about what's happening there. So I think it's going to take a couple weeks for them to figure it out. But I again, looking at paper, what they did in the preseason, it would be easy to say, they're going to have a terrible year, right? Or worse year than what is expected for the New England Patriots. But I think we can never say that with definity because you never know what Bill Belichick can work his magic to do with this offense.
Week one, on Sunday, we are facing the Dolphins. And, the Dolphins, they added some new weapons to their offense, and people have been talking about that a lot. How do you think the Patriots are gonna do against the Dolphins Week 1 on Sunday?
It's interesting because the Patriots and Dolphins, the hype around them, it kind of seems it's completely opposite, right? Patriots, everyone in New England is feeling like, is this the first time that we have all these questions? Are we going to be good? What's happening? Whereas the Dolphins, for the first time in how long, there's so much hype that they're going to be incredible. And I think because Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa having the confidence of his teammates, I believe he was named team captain for the first time in a while. I don't think that had happened. I could be mistaken there, but I think you see the hype that the Miami Dolphins are bringing to this game. But again, week one, it's still so fresh because yes, we have the preseason, but the film that teams have against each other, most of the film from the preseason are your backups or maybe your starters played for a series or a drive or something. So I think maybe, it's an advantage that they're getting them in the first week. It's going to be interesting though to see what actually happens, because I think there's so much uncertainty again with the Patriots, but I was reading an article that they're going down to Miami tomorrow, which is something usually they travel on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's right.
Game. So to have those 5 days down in Miami and really focus on the Dolphins, I think will be really beneficial for the team.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how to, feel about, how Sunday's just going to go, because usually it doesn't go well for the Patriots down in Miami. Miami's a pretty tough team to beat for us, particularly when we play them over there. Hopefully the early arrival and them being in Miami helps them, perform better on Sunday. But, we'll see what happens and how that goes. I wanted to ask you, going back to the Chargers, what's the head coach? Is it Brandon Stanley, if my memory serves correctly?
Yep.
Do you think his head coaching style, the way that he coaches, could get in the way of the Chargers' success? Because to me, I think it certainly was a factor and one of the reasons why the Chargers came up short and not being able to make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I think that's the national perception of the team versus as frequently as I am. His reasoning for, going for it on fourth down and losing that game, it's interesting, but The Athletic actually did a long form piece earlier this summer on kind of his thought process there. And he wanted Justin Herbert to know that he has all the confidence in the world in him. And he wanted him to have the ball in his hands late in the game in a situation like that, because Justin Herbert was just in his second year last season, and he kind of wanted to groom him for years to come as a quarterback who's been in that experience. And I think if that situation were to happen on Sunday, does Staley call the same play? No, I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that was a learning curve for everybody involved, especially Staley, who was in his first year as a head coach. We forget that. I think, though, what he has done with that team, especially going out this offseason and filling all the holes. You talk about coaches, we talk about teams who have holes and maybe they try to address it in the draft or free agency, but it never really happens as well as the Chargers were able to do it this offseason. So if I'm a player and I see that my coach is going out and getting us all the help that he can and spending money where we need it, I would believe in him. And I think every guy, just being around the team, on that team believes in him too. And his style of coaching is just something that they've learned to trust. I don't think it's going to be an issue or something that will linger on after last season. Of course, that's going to be a storyline this week because they're playing the Raiders. But after that, I truly don't think that it's going to be an issue, but I could be wrong.
No, for sure. I totally, hear you on that. That's something that I'm interested in seeing and how that plays out, not only on Sunday against the Raiders, but also throughout the year, because I feel like there were a few other games that you can point to and say maybe if he, called them differently or coached them differently, then could have possibly won those games and, have gotten into the playoffs. I think another game that comes into mind was that Kansas City game last year when they played in LA. And I feel like, they had quite a few red zone possessions and came away empty-handed. And had they, maybe gone for the field goal and taken the 3 points, who knows, if they could have won that game, they certainly would have had a better chance. But I also wanted to ask, going back to the Packers, been trying to figure out who's going to be affected more. Is it Aaron Rodgers that's going to be affected more, or Davante Adams leaving, the Packers and going to the Raiders, who's, going to be, impacted more this season by that change?
That's an interesting question. I think, of course, when you look at paper, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a sure Davante Adams type receiver that Aaron Rodgers built. Do I think that Aaron Rodgers will struggle badly because of it? No, I don't. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's going to make plays. That's what the greatest quarterbacks do. And you use what you have and he'll be successful. I also think David Bakhtiari, I just did a report that he was back in team drills today with the Packers, which we don't realize how big that is for Aaron Rodgers, the left tackle, to have him back, which he's missed him for 19 months or something. I think he played in one game last season. Of course, Davante Adams and the Raiders, I think that's a incredible pickup for the Raiders. We talk about an AFC West division that's so tough. Having Davante Adams on your team is going to make you exceptionally better. And that relationship that he has with Carr dating back to college, I think it's going to be really fun to see what they can produce together. But I don't think it's fair to say one person is hurt more than the other. I think it's just different situations, and we'll see who can adapt to it quicker, maybe.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing how both teams are, affected by that change, since, it's a pretty, big changes, of the situation, for both, the Packers and the Raiders. So definitely looking forward to seeing how that goes, and if, both teams can, be able to still play well and be successful. I also wanted to ask about going back to the Patriots, just wanted to see what, outside of New England and around the league, what's like the perception of Mac Jones. Like, how do people view and see Mac Jones, from around the league?
Yeah, I think he's one of the great quarterbacks from, last year. I think what bringing the Patriots to the wild card round last year was he beat expectations of what people had out for him. I think the biggest question though around is how he's going to develop now with Josh McDaniels gone and Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, two coaches, like I mentioned earlier, who aren't your typical offensive coaches. Joe Judge now as his quarterback coach, I believe they named him the quarterback coach, right? I'm trying to make sure that I got that right. Like I said, I don't really cover them.
He works at the quarterbacks, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's the
he's not your typical quarterbacks coach. So to see how he can help Mac Jones develop in such a year that is really fundamental in his growth is going to be really interesting. But I do think that there's a lot of potential there. And from everyone that, you talk to, he's a smart guy who can manage a lot of pressure, what he had to do in his first season. So I think he's one of the quarterbacks that a lot of people have circled as, okay, is this his takeoff year? How can he produce more efficiently than he did last season? I think too, if he gets some help, the offensive line, that was a big issue for them last year. So if there is more stability there, I think it opens up more room for this offense to do different things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Bridget, again, thank you for coming on the show. We do a lot of interviews. We're doing interviews on a weekly basis. We don't have a lot of women that come on, not for lack of trying and stuff like that. So really appreciate you coming on. But I think, I wanted to ask this question. The NFL, it's a year-round product now, and it seems like on a yearly basis, there's a lot of things going on, and with players and domestic situations. This year we had, Deshaun Watson, and then the whole thing with the Bills kicker came in. That situation was pretty nasty. As a woman that works in the NFL, and please don't say anything if you're not allowed to, or anything like that. How do these things make you feel, and how can the NFL help these situations or minimize these situations?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I just want to say, as a woman, I love having the opportunity to work in such a male-dominated industry. It's so fun, and there are plenty of men that make this so easy for me, giving me certain opportunities. You guys will love this. Willie McGinnis, of course, works here at NFL Network, and he has been such a huge support system to me since I started almost a year ago. I can call him up and say, Willie, I don't understand what this defensive coordinator is talking about, or I don't really get, like, why is this guy, why are they listing him as a defensive lineman and not a linebacker? Or what's going on? Why did Brandon Staley say that, this happens in a 3-4 scheme, anything. And I'll say, wait, Willie, sorry, this is a stupid question. He always is, Bridget, don't say that. I want to help you. And having someone like him, who was such an incredible NFL player, just to talk to and to break it down and not make you feel stupid is incredible. And I love that there are men like that in this league that are so willing to help, and they don't want anything in return, right? They just want to see the game advance and women being able to talk more intelligently about football. Of course, there are issues that, and I'd like to say, hopefully they will disappear, but I think the NFL is a byproduct of society. And I think there's always going to be, hopefully not, but there will be issues in society with sexual harassment and misconduct. And as unfortunate as it is, I just don't ever want that to overtake or overshadow all the positive things that men do. Football players sometimes get bad reps for things that are in headlines are negative, but one of my favorite things about covering this league is getting to know players one-on-one and really seeing the positive side of what they're able to accomplish, what they do in the community, how they help women. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying it's unfortunate when we have to talk about things like that and report on things like that. And I never want to, I'm kind of at the place where I don't feel it's in my best interest to share my opinion maybe on everything, because as a journalist, I want to remain unbiased and I want to remain professional, and it's my job to just tell the news right now. I don't think it's my purpose over something like that, if that makes sense. So yeah. I think there are a lot of bad, but there's also twice as much good. It's just the good you don't always see in the headlines.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Thank you for sharing with us and taking on that question. So far, you work in the NFL and the NFL Network. What do you think's the coolest thing you've been able to do as an NFL reporter?
Wow, that's a great question. I had a lot of fun during training camp. I started in Carolina, and then I went to Atlanta to cover the Falcons. That was my first time in Atlanta covering them. And then from there, I went to Green Bay. And that was kind of a moment for me where it really hit. I've been doing this for 7 years. I went to James Madison, graduated in 2015, then I've worked in Charlottesville in local news, covering sports like UVA and the Washington football team for 2 years, then went to Raleigh after that, was at another local station for 4 years, covering the Panthers and UNC and Duke and NC State. And there are moments in your career, especially working in sports, especially as a woman working in sports, where it hits you and it's like, is this worth it? I've been away from my family for the past 5 Christmases. Is it really worth it? You're struggling, trying to make it to 5 different games in a night just to get highlights. And you're like, what am I doing? And then you have, people who want to email you and say, you pronounced this guy's name wrong, or you said this, or you don't know what you're talking about. And it can get really frustrating. And I always just said, one day it's all going to be worth it. And when I was in Green Bay in the Packers locker room, talking to Aaron Rodgers, I actually introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Bridget Condon with NFL Network. And he was like, oh, great. And shook my hand. And we were just chatting for a minute. That's kind of where I was like, okay, it is all worth it, because getting the opportunity to accomplish something that you never in your wildest dreams would have imagined, and getting the privilege to talk to a player like Aaron Rodgers or anyone else and find their story, and you're the person that gets to tell that story to all the fans and everyone else, and change perception of players who maybe people don't like, and tell things that have never been told about them before. That's what's so cool about it. And I think this summer, really getting to be around so many different teams, and with locker rooms back open, something that hadn't happened the past 2 years because of COVID, it really just hit me like, this is cool. Okay, this is going to be really exciting. You know, there are obviously things that I haven't even finished my first year here. There are things that I still need to work on. And, you know, I didn't know if Joe Judge was the quarterback's coach. I'm sorry about that. I'll probably get roasted on Twitter for that. But, you know, the thing about it is
It's all good. No worries.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I know every single thing in the NFL. I don't think any of my colleagues could say that too, but it's just having the opportunity to get to be here and get to continue learning and reporting and making connections. That's what's the coolest thing to me.
Yeah, I don't think we know everything that there is to know in the NFL as well. You know, I think my last question would be for, you know, again, we don't have, you know, it's a male-dominated industry. You know, we don't have too many women come on, and we love it when they do. But we also know there are young women that are trying to, you know, make it exactly where you are. What are some advice you have for those, you know, young women that are trying to crack into the industry and make a name for themselves?
I would say I am always willing to talk. My DMs on Instagram, Twitter are a great place to start if you ever have any question. There are so many women that have helped me get here. Lindsay Zarniak, she, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She's now does sideline for Fox. She was the ESPN Sports Center 6 o'clock anchor for so many years. She actually went to James Madison, the same college as me. And so when I was in college, I connected with her. And since then, the past 7 years, she's been a rock for me, helping me get through this. But I would just say, it is challenging, and there are days where you get frustrated. Why can I make a mistake and I'll get canceled on Twitter, but one of my male colleagues makes the same mistake and everyone just looks at it as, oh, he messed up, he misspoke. Those things are really frustrating, but it's also cool to come out on the other side of it. And when people tweet at you and say, dang, she really knows her stuff. So just think about those moments when you're down, and also study. You know, I read so many articles from different sites, ESPN, The Athletic, NFL.com, of course, and I'm always taking down notes. I like to draw the depth charts and kind of just place the players on a paper. It helps me visualize it more. You know, as a female or a woman, I've never played football. I played flag football, but there are things that a man who played football maybe just naturally understand because, you know, you were a running back. So you know exactly what routes you're running, or you know exactly where defenders are on the field. Whereas me, I maybe need to draw it out and say, okay, this is where a linebacker is. This is where safety is, or, you know. And I also think find people that you can lean on, men in the industry that you can call up and say, hey, I got a question, explain this to me, who won't make you feel dumb. Because using men, you know, we can't, everyone loves to, or a lot of women love to say men are trash, but no, we need men in our lives too, as frustrating as they are, and they can be super helpful to us as women in this industry when they're willing to help and break things down and be respectful. So lean on those men in your life that you can trust and respect, because they really do help make the game slow down and make it easier for you.
Good advice. Any of you guys have a last question for Bridget? Barry, do you have a last question? Or Vlad? Or, you know, did Bridget answer all our questions here?
I didn't have any last questions, but yeah, I mean, it's been great interviewing you, Bridget. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did have a last question. As a matter of fact, and I typically ask the last question, so I'll do those honors. Just wanted to ask you, Bridget, do the Patriots make the playoffs this year? Do you see them as a top 7 team in the AFC and getting a playoff spot?
I think the Patriots will make the playoffs wild card round. That's my prediction. I think somewhere between 8-9 wins, which hopefully that would still get them a wild card position.
All right. Well, our last guest didn't think
so.
our last guest didn't think we'd make the playoffs, so we feel a little better.
I gotta be
this
positive.
week.
I can't be overly positive because then people get mad. But I grew up like 20 minutes from Foxborough. Your fandom kind of changes when you're in this industry, but I can still hope for all my friends back in Boston. I know what it's like when the Patriots get into the playoffs, and I hope everyone gets to experience that every year because it's crazy up there in Boston.
Absolutely. Well,
Sure is. Got that right. You know it.
Once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you guys.
We're privileged to have you. So thanks again, and you have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Well, Bridget, just wanted to say one thing before you go. Congrats again on the engagement. I just seen that you recently got engaged. So just wanted to congratulate you on that, and also thank you for coming on the podcast and joining us today. It was honor and and a pleasure having you, and hopefully we get to have you later on during the football season.
Yeah, thank you. Again, sorry I didn't have I'm like we should have called Mike Girardi, our Patriots insider, because he would have been able to help with that stuff. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk Chargers and stuff like that.
Bridget, it'll be nice if you could connect us with Mike Girardi.
Okay,
yes,
yeah. If you guys shoot him he's pretty good at responding on Twitter. If you guys shoot him a message or
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Barry, make sure you do that.
You know what's interesting, guys? I'm gonna tell y'all this, because I'm usually the one that reaches out to the guest to come on the show. I've hit him up a few times and he hasn't hit me back up. So
maybe
if
he
you
was
could put
busy.
the good word in. I know
Mike's
he's a
in
busy
trouble.
man. I get that. He's a very has a very tight schedule, I'm sure. But if you can put the good word in for us and and tell him to hit us back up, if we, when we do out to him, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay, I will.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your night.
Hi, Bridget.
Yeah, have a great night.
You too.
Take care.
That was awesome. That was Bridget Condon of the NFL Network, man. And if you guys want to follow her, it's at Bridget Condon _ on Twitter, and it's Bridget Condon on Instagram. So y'all go find her and make sure y'all support her. She's doing big things at the NFL Network. Make sure you guys are following us on our platforms as well. It's at ProFanSports on everything except for Instagram. That's at ProFans _sports. We drop every week, dropping content on social media every single day. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and commenting on the videos and sharing the videos as well. And as always, thank you for the support. And until the next episode, we out of here.
So have a good week. See y'all next week. And happy birthday, Mac Jones.